Right.
Y'all see the
Great.
screen?
Let me just do a quick intro for Chris Collins. He's a Scrum Master and AI lead at Austin Public Health. So he's bringing his industry experience and builder's mindset to government technology. So he's done a lot of work to help his teams, work through turning AI from conceptual into hands-on development work and showing them how to deliver measurable value from these new technologies. And we are fortunate that he's willing to walk us through some of his agentic design work today. And for those of you who are interested, Chris is also going to run a series of training webinars for us starting in January. So I'll put the sign up link for those as well, and you can get to it from the Circle community. But that'll go out in our show notes from today. So we will have some additional opportunities for you to really dig into this and get the tooling setups and the hands-on experience. If this sparks your interest, then that would definitely be the thing to do. So without further delay, I will hand it over to you, Chris.
All right, thanks. Can you hear me all right?
All good.
Perfect. All right. So if we have questions during the presentation, if you want to put them in the chat, and then Andrea, if you find good spots to pause me if we need to, I think that'd be great.
Yep.
I'm going to try to move pretty quick through some of this. I think some of it's basic concepts that many of you may already know. And with that, I'll get started. So good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I'm really, really excited to be here and talk to such an awesome group. I think everything that y'all are doing is fantastic. My name is Christopher Collins. Again, I've got 25 years in IT. I started at Dell. I've been working through startups, and I've spent now almost a decade in the public sector. And for the last couple of years, I've been deep diving in AI, going after certifications, specializations, teaching, building, really trying to put the knowledge into practical use, specifically within the public sector. And last week, Andrea gave you a really great intro into vibe coding. So today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you further. So we're going to go all the way out to the bleeding edge of where things are at today, what's possible today with agents. And I think it'll be a really good way to close out the year and help you understand what's going to be coming at you. I know many of you have real concerns about security, procurement, how hard it is to get some of these tools into your organizations. Those are all valid. I think it's still important to share this stuff because I think as some of you pointed out last week, there are already people that are coming into our workforce that are using these tools in a different way than we're used to. By mid 2026, the traditional work and development pipelines are going to change. They're all dying and changing. Vibe coding is already starting to reach a mature state. And there's even a shift within that vibe coding community to move off of all of the traditional stacks. So this is going to be a primer and a window into that future so that you're not caught off guard when people start bringing it up. And I know it's challenging to keep up, but I hope this is going to be fun. You might recognize the contract tracer that we have here with us today. This is an agent who's going to help us with the rest of our slide decks because they know a thing or two about artificial intelligence. So, like I said, for the last 3 years, I've been running. I have been researching. I've been taking all these classes, building lots of stuff deep within the AI space. But everything's always been around prompting, prompt engineering, building context, lots of writing, planning out your work before you do it. There's also a flip side to that, which is AI tends to be for many people just very task oriented. I'm going to Excel and I need a formula for this. I don't know how to write it. Oh, I'll go ask ChatGPT, right? It's a second thought. But a few months ago, I sat down and I asked myself a question. I was like, is this really the best way to be doing this? So if you've read anything about agents, you know that there's a lot of planning that can go into creating a good agent workflow, building out all those workflows. You've probably seen some of the visual tools of wiring stuff together. So I was watching a YouTube video of some guys that were coding, and I noticed that they were doing something different. They weren't typing. They were talking. And they were talking directly into Claude Code, the tool that you guys saw last week. So that's kind of sparked a thought for me. And I realized that every generation of these models has become more conversant. They're starting to understand our intent in ways that a lot of the early models never could. So I started trying it out. So what if instead of prompting, I just started collaborating with my AI? kind of talking to it, using voice a little bit more, or just, when I'm typing, be more conversant with it and less formal. And so that's kind of what the rest of this presentation is going to be all about. And like any great movie, we're going to start off with a little bit of flashback to some foundational concepts, right? So like, what's an agentic workflow anyway? You've all probably heard of the standard chat workflow, the zero shot approach. This is where we all started back in 2023, 2024, the early versions of these models where you make a prompt, the AI uses the knowledge it has, it doesn't have any tools, and it just answers your question and you kind of roll with it. It's a lot like a librarian. You ask them a question, they already know where that book is, and they go find it, or they just tell you the answer. But if you fast forward to earlier this year, maybe late last year, we were starting to get into this agentic workflow, this iterative approach. And Andrea King came up with this workflow. He's from Stanford, a professor at Stanford, and it's termed the agentic loop. So you as the user set a goal, you give it to the AI, and then the AI breaks it down and makes a plan, creates a to-do list or something. Then it starts using tools. It loops within those tools, and then it can make observations about its own tool use. It can even reflect on how it's doing, change what it's working on, correct its errors, and then give you a final answer. That's kind of where we're at today. And so it's like asking a research assistant a question. You don't have to tell it how to do each individual step. You trust that your assistant is going to go off and do this research and bring you back a nice package of information. So what does that look like in practice? We're thinking about planning a trip to Austin. If I go to standard ChatGPT and I tell it to plan me a trip to Austin, it's going to maybe do a web search. It's going to find local hotels in Austin. Maybe it's going to get some price information. It's going to give me a list. There's a high risk of hallucination. It's low depth knowledge. Agentic workflows change that. Now, if I go to the Gemini agent or the OpenAI agent that can actually use the web browser and can use tools, if I say, find me a hotel in Austin for next week, in Gemini, it's going to ask me some clarifying questions before it starts. We're going to have a little conversation. Then it's going to take that information and it's going to start searching flights and hotels. Once it gathers more information, it's going to go look at all of my data that I've connected to the platform. It's going to start making API calls to all the different services that I've allowed it access to. It's going to look in my email. It might find my flight information for me. It might find out that we're going to be closer to the hotel with a lot of our events. So it will refine that and automatically find hotels that are within that area. Then it's going to go and be able to check, are they available? I'm not going to give the user information that they can't use. So it might come back and say that found a room at the Fairmont that fits my flight schedule and my budget and ask me if it wants to book it. Most all of these agents still need you to do the final input before it takes any type of critical action. But today, this is current state, you can have it book the hotel for you too. You have everything hooked up. That's a full agentic workflow. Within agentic workflows, there's a couple of types. So we have a serial workflow. A serial workflow is where you chain the inputs and the outputs of different agents together. So you might start off with a set of data. That's our cookies here. You might use a tool like Julius AI to do some data modeling and some data analysis. You might take the output from Julius and then run that into Perplexity to use it to search for papers and research to see if you might have valid or new or interesting results. Then you might take the output from both of those models and put that into a model or a tool like Manus AI, which is a subset of many agents that can build websites, it can build presentations. And it can take all of that information and build something beautiful for you, maybe a whole portal to communicate with your local community. But then we also have parallel workflows. So parallel workflows is a single orchestrator that can call many agents all at the same time to work in parallel work streams on different tasks. It can create them with different specialties, access to different tools, access to different information. And it can run all of those agents at the same time, greatly enhancing the capabilities of the agents. So quick review. Agents, single agents is kind of where we're at today for most people if they're testing beta tools. Serial agents is kind of your power user space where people are taking the output of one agentic system and piping it into another. And then you have parallel agents. That's the stories you hear about people that are running 5 and 6 instances of Claude code at the same time, and they're piping it into this other one, and they're able to complete a software development project in days instead of months. That's happening now. So what does that look like if you put it all together? You can talk to one particular tool and everything comes together like a movie. We're starting to take the seat of the director. So instead of being the person that sits there and types the task, does the task like we were talking about earlier, the formulas inside of Excel, where you get stuck doing some menial work, instead of that, we need to start stepping back and thinking about how would I direct this? What's the end goal that I'm looking for? So instead of thinking about the cell in the Excel spreadsheet, I'm thinking about I need to create a data model. I need to deliver a community survey report because the agents can do all of that work and they can call on specialists to put these things together for you. So we're starting to come away from that menial work and rise up into this orchestration platform. So how do you orchestrate? You become the captain. So you need to think about yourself as steering the ship. So the captain doesn't go down and work on the engine, doesn't grab the wheel and steer the actual ship most of the time, right? They're giving orders and they're thinking about things from a strategy. They're choosing the direction. So what does that look like? So instead of using our earlier example, worrying about a formula inside of a column in Excel, we might say, hey, Agent Smith, please take the income spreadsheet and fix all the formatting issues. Then I want you to take that and build a beautiful quarterly dashboard with purple hues and elegant line charts. And I want you to publish that to our reporting platform. So we're moving from doing individual tasks to being able to task our agents with goals and deliverables. So as you start getting into this world, you start tasking up all these agents and you're the captain of the ship. You start to realize that you have to provide a lot of feedback. Your typing almost can't keep up. When you're in the zone and you need to communicate with your agent, especially if you have multiple agents going, what I have found is stopping to type really detracts from my creativity and my capability to actually keep up with them. I'm trying to fix my typing mistakes. I'm thinking about whether that's a complete sentence. The spell checker is warning me that I did something wrong. That's really taking me out of the element of doing the work. And so we've got to figure out a way to move beyond that. And staying in that stream of conscious and developing your creativity and being able to have a conversation, like a real-time conversation with these agents, is really where the unlock is. And so, like I said earlier, I had this spark of an idea watching a couple of YouTubers doing their coding sessions because they weren't typing. They were actually using a tool called Super Whisper to speak directly to the AI. And so with Mr. Smith's help, I started digging. And when you sit at a keyboard, you're trying to craft these complete sentences that take you out of the zone. So we had this intuition that speaking has to be faster, right? Well, it is. It turns out that Stanford did a lot of research into this, and they found out that speaking specifically into your computer is 3 times faster for most people than trying to type. And through my research, I found out that, directors don't type scripts changes to their crew mid-sentence or mid-scene. Everyone's communicating via voice. That's how we all collaborate and communicate. It's the faster medium. And when you start using your voice, all that friction disappears. And then suddenly the AI can keep up just as fast as your ideas can come out. So how do you talk to your computer? Well, you don't have to have those tools, right? I know you're thinking, Chris, that's really cool, but my IT would freak out if I went to them with this tool and told them I want to install that on my computer, or they just won't let you do it, right? But the good news is most of the tools that you probably use today already have voice input capability. Windows 11 also already has voice access. It's an accessibility feature, so it's built into your computer. You can press the Windows key and H on most computers, And that'll open up a voice typing bar that allows you to click it into any field and talk and type directly into the computer. Mac OS has something very similar. So on Mac, the shortcut key on most of them is function and F5 for the microphone key. Again, all the AI native apps, the current mainstream apps, ChatGPT has a microphone, does voice transcription. ChatGPT also has voice to voice. If you haven't tried that out, you should. Gemini also has a really great voice input feature. Copilot, depending on your company or your entity's deployment, may or may not have that turned on. I know in our instance, we have it turned off, sadly. So we have to use the built-in tools. But I want to tell you more about leveling up because this is really where the power is. I think, and I'm pretty confident that all throughout 2026, this whole conversation is going to shift to using voice tools and interacting more conversationally with the AI and less with the structured prompting. So I mentioned that tool called Super Whisper. That's actually called a context aware proxy tool because it does a lot more than just listen to your voice and translate your words into text. It actually sits between your voice and the apps that you want to talk to, and it uses AI and uses smart features so that it can understand your intent and it can clean up your text. It can format your text. It's actually running prompts in the background. So your stream of conscious talking to your computer, an AI is taking that text and turning it into something meaningful based off of the app that's currently active. They know which application is active. So, for example, they know when you're in a coding tool versus an email client versus the web browser. So, if you're in ChatGPT and you have that tab active and you say, I need a table comparing the things I have highlighted, the tool knows the content that's under your cursor. It takes that, adds it to the prompt in the background, and then creates a new prompt without you having to do the prompt engineering and paste that into ChatGPT for you. In the same instance, you can hit the tab key and tab over to Outlook, and you can say, hey, tell Bob I'm going to be late because of traffic. The AI has received information that you're now in Windows Outlook or Microsoft Outlook. It knows that's an email application. It's going to trigger a different profile within the application. So now the AI is going to rewrite that into a professional email automatically. And it's going to say, hi, Bob. I'm currently running a bit behind schedule due to the heavy traffic. I'll be there shortly. You didn't really have to do the heavy lifting there. All you had to do was talk. So both of those things have happened now 3 to 5 times faster than they normally would. No prompt libraries, no copy and paste, no personas to load. Your stream of conscious becomes structured action. There's also another tool that I'm going to recommend for those who would like to check it out, and that's called Whisper Flow. It's very similar to Super Whisper. And both of these, just within the last week or two, have launched on both Mac and Windows. So what does Super Whisper look like inside? Because I know you want to maybe check this out. Well, it's pretty cool. When you open it up, you can set up different modes. And setting up a mode means you're going to tie it to a series of applications. And within a mode, you can choose the language model that you want to intercede when you send your text. And then you can choose the voice model. They have cloud models and they have local models. You can see here, I prefer Claude 4.5 Sonnet for my kind of translator agent. And then I like to run Parakeet because it runs locally on my computer. That means my voice actually never leaves my computer when it does the voice model transcription. And each mode, you can set different profiles for those. So if you want to run a local language model, or if you have an Azure model that you need to run because you need to keep all of your stuff secure and inside your domain, you can configure that within these tools. So they are highly configurable for security. Then I'm going to select which apps I want to activate when I have this profile active. I can choose what type of context I want to send every time I'm interacting with this particular profile or this particular application. I can send it information about the application that's active. I can send it, again, copied text, so whatever's in your clipboard, or selected text. That's what you highlight with your cursor. Another really cool feature that I like, if you're like me, you might be listening to Spotify when you work. So whenever you want to talk, it will automatically mute audio or media that's playing in the background so that you can talk into your microphone and not pull the noise in. And then you'll see over on the left, each profile or mode can have custom instructions. And this is where you put your prompt. So you do some prompt engineering, you put that into your mode, and then that's the last time you have to do it. So how it works, you talk, you hit the shortcut key for the voice proxy to pop up. The agent inside the voice proxy tool is listening. Depending on what application is active, it changes everything around, writes all the prompt for you, adds all the context necessary, and then cool stuff happens inside your app. And this is a real example. So if I said something like, find something inside this that needs to be optimized within the code, but don't fix it, just tell me what it is. The prompt that Super Whisper writes is going to be much different. It's going to change that into what is necessary for the tool that I have open. In this case, this was Claude Code. And so I've provided a couple of examples of good prompting, and Sonnet is already very well trained on how to write prompts for models, especially to itself. So I've turned a very quick little statement into a great prompt. Okay, so that's great, but what does that look like? You can talk to your computer. It probably seems like a novelty, but I ran an experiment. I did 355 voice prompts. That's 23,000 words. I was able to convert that into 42,000 lines of code. That's 6 months work of development team compressed into 24 hours. There was zero typing. And so I'm going to share with you today, if you want to scan that QR code or type this into your browser and go check this website out. I'll shift my sharing over to this real quick. Everybody able to see that all right? All right. So this is a fully functional, near production quality e-learning web portal. There are over 190 AI tools cataloged in a learning catalog with a comparison engine. There's a full course on how to do what I've just told you how to do here, right? And using your voice to start becoming more agentic and develop agentic workflows. There are interactive learning modules. There's quick start guides. There's lots of little animated features and interactive widgets. Things that design agency might charge tens and tens of thousands of dollars to create for you, all based on real data. It's fully ARIA compliant. It's mobile friendly, mobile reactive. There's an entire library of custom workflows that tell you about different types of AI agents that you might want to chain together in order to do real workflows. There's a catalog here which has compliance information as well as different categories for these AI tools to help you kind of cut through the muck and find tools that might be relevant to whatever task or agentic activity that you want to do, complete with links to their websites. I didn't do any of this. Agents pulled all this together for me. There's case building tools so that you can take to your management information about the ROI that these tools can offer to help you pitch this stuff to procurement. There's customizable templates where you can type in information. It will help you target budget levels, funding levels, better pitches. And there's resources. I also want to point out there are a case study and kind of a making the sausage here. So You're probably asking, how did this all actually come together? Well, in order to build this, one of the first things that I did was I had agents help me with the idea. So I went out and triggered a bunch of different agents and we started brainstorming together. And we needed to do some research on all the tools that are out there and all the capabilities that are out there. So I found an agent called Minimax and an agent called Kimi K2 that are pretty low cost when you compare them to agents like Gemini or OpenAI. And I had them go out and they pulled information on over 190 AI tools in the marketplace. And they brought back a full JSON file and a data package of those tools that we were then able to take and pull into the system to build a catalog. Then I had the AIs engage in an interactive AI design contest. So we took that information and we said, hey, agent, if you could do anything with this and you could make a really great website, what would it look like? Gave them profiles to be experts in UI and UX design. Each of the agents coded up their design. And then we had them all collaborate and vote, and they chose the best design. This is the design that they chose. So this design, the design winner was actually the agent called Manus. The work that they've done with that tool has very good front-end design skills and capabilities. So then when we went to try to take that from the agent and turn it into something that other agents could collaborate with, everything went wrong. So playing out on the bleeding edge, things are going to go wrong. All the work had been uploaded from the other agents into this one Manus agent, right? So was my whole central repository. But something went wrong in their backend and their Git repository or their Git structure, and we could not retrieve the files. And it could not publish the files to the public. I contacted their support team. They couldn't figure out what was wrong. They just offered to refund me the credits. However, we had agents. So we collaborated with the agents and I gave them all the error messages and what was going wrong. And one of them picked up on the fact that there was actually a VS Code installation that was available through the remote desktop connection inside the VS Code or the Manus agent. And that within VS Code, we could probably get to the root of the file folders that we couldn't get to through their little web browsing interface. So it went in and was able to get to a terminal where we could type commands to zip up all the files and then send them to ourselves through that installation of VS Code. So the agents came, rescued all of the files off of that agent, and then we brought everything local. So I didn't really want to risk it with as much time and energy and money as we had put into building all this pool of research. So pretty much switched over to everything being Claude Code, and not Claude Code on the web, but Claude Code via the command line. So I would typically run 4 to 6 concurrent instances of Claude Code, talking to each one, giving each one different tasks. Also used a tool called Factory Droid and another tool called Crush. Those are also command line agents. They have a little bit of a different scaffolding behind them, or harness, some people call it. That means that those agents can do different things that Claude Code can or can't do. So the rest of the development was primarily done that way locally through these command line Claude Code agents, with me talking to Super Whisper understanding which of the agents I was talking to. And I built profiles for their specific roles. Like, this is the UI UX agent, so we're going to prompt this way. This is one of our coding agents for the back end, so we're going to talk to it that way. All I had to do was hit Alt-Tab to tab back and forth between the agents, read what they were telling me on the screen, look at my screen, and I'll show you here. If you ever use Chrome, Chrome has this little developer mode that you can shift into. So I would just watch my web browser, talk to these agents. They would do things. Do you like this color? What about this button? Do you like this? Yes or no? I was just acting as a creative director, watching for errors. Sometimes I might have to tell them what the error was. These agents, though, can connect to your web browser with specific sets of tools like MCP servers. and they can self fix these errors. They can see the errors happening in the browser as they're happening, and they can iterate them all on their own by themselves. So once we had the design tight and I was happy with a lot of the copy, which was also an interesting process, um, it was time to deploy it somewhere where you guys could see it. So I chose to deploy to Vercel, number one, because this is what's called a React website. The company Vercel natively hosts React and Next.js projects very well. But they also have an AI deployment system. So I could have my AI talk to their AI and deploy the whole thing for me. I didn't have to type anything into the system. All I had to do was log in, and then they could talk to each other and do all the hard work. And so to be fully transparent, what you see here is where I ended after that development cycle. I haven't gone back in and tweaked anything. I'll say it's not 100% perfect, right? But the volume of work that was done while I was doing other things, because I was just doing this on the side while I was doing other things. So the volume of work that they're able to do, the quality of work, um, I don't know about y'all, but I thought I was pretty impressed with what they were able to pull together. Um, the speed, the efficiency. Once you get into the back and forth with the agents and you start learning to let go of your stream of conscious thought, that you don't feel silly, talking to thin air, it really gets empowering. And I don't type to any AI much anymore. Just as a matter of my daily work stream, I really only type to colleagues occasionally. Most of the work that I'm doing is going into some sort of voice proxy that is doing that translation for me and then piping it into the tools. And once you start learning that you can just hit the Alt Tab key and then you can hit Alt Space and talk and your task is done, it really changes the way you start to think about work. And this is a completely non-traditional pipeline. I never opened an IDE. So VS Code, tools like that, never opened one once, right? This entire website was created without opening any traditional development tools. I did use Git. All this is also available on GitHub. I'll share that link out if people want to look at the source code. I'm open to your questions. I'll switch back over to our slide deck here real quick.
Right. This is just great, Chris. I knew this would land with folks. It's a really great kind of leading edge approach to this work. And I'm gonna look through some of the questions in the chat here. We have questions. Well, we have a comment saying like, "How do you handle this if you work in a cube space? It's gonna drive your coworkers nuts talking to your computers all day." And one that's a bit more focused from Laura Patterson. Laura, do you want to unmute and ask? And then we'll go to Ronald.
Hi, yes, sorry. Yeah, I was just wondering, like, I mean, I thought about using agents before, but do you know of like a resource where we can learn to like build this sort of thing on our local computers? Because that part I don't understand. Like, how can I do this on my local computer so that my data isn't shared with the World Wide Web?
Yes, and we're going to
Thanks.
go over that in these workshops. That's a really great segment.
Nice. Okay.
So yeah, like the tool that I showed you, Super Whisper, it can use local models. And if you set them up on your local machine or like within your organization, um, there are ways like to configure Azure. So you could use your Azure models. And if you have all your privacy stuff set up, you can use a local model to do the voice translation. And then you
Okay.
can use your Azure model, or you can run little tools like LM Studio. I don't know if you guys have talked much about those yet, but there's apps that you can run on your computer that will host these pretty smart little models.
Hmm.
That they're not as good as the tech models that you pay a lot of money for, but they're good enough for tasks like this. And that
Hmm.
means you can keep everything 100% local on your machine. And then the tool that Andrea showed you guys last week, Claude Code, is probably one of the better ones to use. And it allows you to configure it as well. So if you wanted to do all of your coding and keep it local too, that is possible.
Hmm. Thank you.
You're
This
welcome.
is amazing. Thank you.
and we'll go over setting all that stuff up. So I think our first session is all about tool setup and tool use and what you can and can't use. And I'm happy to help everyone walk through their specific security scenarios because trust me, I know it's rough.
Yep, and we've got 3 sessions planned right now to take us through the full arc of setting up these tools, figuring out how to use them, and then actually getting the agent to agent interaction going on. So we'll do one a month. First one's January 15th. It'll be about 90 minutes. We booked 2 hours just to make sure we have enough time to cover things. There's a lot there. And then we'll do one in February. Date's not set yet, and same for March. But please register so we can get a sense of how many folks will be there. And we would really love to have you all learn here. And I see a question about whether or not there's anything people can do to prepare, Chris, if there's any kind of quick guidance you want to give folks, but I also want to make sure that we have time to answer the questions that are coming up.
Yeah, there's some good information on that site. It's not all fake. Like that's real information out there that that all those agents pulled together. So I go out to the Agent Shift website and go to that Learn tab and check out some of the workflows. The workflows list some of the tools that are out there that you might be interested in. Um, Feel free to use the information on the slide deck. Contact me directly if you have questions about, what tools you might want to set up, or, maybe we can do a quick little survey just to find out what people are interested in. But this is kind of the bleeding edge. There's not a lot of information out there from any mainstream providers that sew this all together, right? Like OpenAI just recently launched their agentic tool sets, right? And they're not connecting to others natively yet.
Great. I think questions we had Ronald, then Jason, then Jamie, then Ali. We've got quite a few lined up for you, so let's get to it. Go ahead, Ronald.
All right. Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Is this headset all right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm trying to two things, and one Laura touched on, but like last time I looked at agentic coding a few months ago, it was not this easy to get, at least as you presented it, this easy to kind of get this stack of orchestrated agents working together and serving your task. But one of the things that was apparent then was that if you began with request, like kind of at a higher strategic level, and let the agent sort of map out, oh, here's a proposed strategy, it was actually really hard to get quality on those strategies. Like you might get a generically high quality strategy, sometimes a miss, but especially in peculiar interest, it actually, in some of these like studies in rare communities or in other language groups, but a lot of advice might be, for instance, best practice in a business sector that we actually would not want in the public sector. And so there's examples like that and tests like that where I've noticed if you kind of like where you began with older versions where you might be very prescriptive and say, I want you to like make this function for me, and go to another age, I want you to make this function, but not really let them orchestrate strategy. You, the human, kind of worry about that bigger problem. But once you're at that point of, here's my broad idea, how should I go about this? A lot of that advice could be a miss. And if you, the user, are already doing that, there'll be a lot more people saying that high level request or interest without like necessarily the capacity, whether it's time or knowledge, to vet the strategy being offered. And so we have a concern about that corroding expertise amongst our workforce and decision making, even just as a culture. So even if people come in with a high level of expertise, breaking down those cross team and cross organization efforts to collaborate where they would otherwise have asked, hey, how should we do this? And then learn things. So I'm a little curious how you get around that. And even where I'm curious when you say that you had them, somewhat related, when you had them vote on interface, why that would be a valid response when the interface as a human computer issue would be like, which one your particular users would be most interested in. How do you know their like the agents and whatever reports you might get out of those for why they chose what they chose would actually be valid. Like, how do you get that last leg in there in those kinds of design decisions?
Yeah, so that was a lot to unpack, but let me give it a shot. So first of all, with your overall strategy, it's extremely helpful in the very early stages to put together what's kind of rolling around the vibe coding community is a PRD. They're calling it a PRD. So a requirements document that has background information on what it is you're trying to do, what you want to build, what your goals are, and like a typical software development project, what are the requirements and the guardrails and the parameters for this thing? And you can give a big document like that to an agent that's specifically set up and prompted to do strategy or project allocation work, and then it can break it down more effectively. A lot depends also on the director, the orchestrator, that the person in the seat. So, like I alluded to, being a director, right? You don't let someone direct a film that doesn't know anything about making films. So the types of tasks that you need to be aware of are your own limitations. If you don't know anything about software design, could you sit down and maybe make an app? Yes, but to your point, you might not know that half of what it did violates best practices in your industry. And so that's the part of knowledge, that's the critique part and the back and forth I'm finding where the collaboration is useful, right? That's where it's useful to jump over into voice, where you have higher bandwidth capability to communicate that stuff. I had to do that frequently on this project. Like button designs, one of the things that I found was it would not consistently treat buttons and it wouldn't do ARIA labeling. And I could add a new tab or ask it to add a new tab somewhere. And just by default, it wouldn't make it reactive, even though all of those specifications were in the documentation that every agent's supposed to read when they first start up. So there's a lot of nudging that has to go on. There's a lot of back and forth work, right? Like it's not 100% smooth sailing. And I don't want to confuse you and say like this was easy. It wasn't necessarily easy. I've been doing this a long time. I kind of knew how to approach it. I don't think the average person would be able to just crack in their seat and pop this out. But there are people that are doing this and the workflows are moving in this direction. But I think all of your points are very, very valid about keeping a human in the loop. There are quality concerns. You have to watch the work. Um, there are code quality issues that you have to essentially spin up special agents and bots, or at least what I did was spin up special agents and bots inside of GitHub to watch out for things that I saw were common issues. So whenever I would make a commit or do a PR, I have a whole set of bots that would review that and specifically look out for those gotchas, and then they would go in and fix those things or at least warn me about them. So there's some ways to mitigate that stuff. It's not 100% perfect yet.
Thank you. And what was the name of that document that people are generating now?
A PRD.
PRD.
Yeah, and there's another process called BMAD, BMAD. And then there's another one that GitHub is using. I think it's called Sparks or Spark, maybe. So there's a whole agent that they've created that does nothing but help you with this product requirements process to build that documentation out so that agents can then go do their work.
Right.
That's called long horizon planning.
Okay, I've heard this term. Or at least remember hearing this term. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Hey,
And
Jason.
to be clear, this is all very exciting.
Hey, Chris. Excellent work. Good to see you again. And looking forward to again next week too. And then so I have a couple questions. I've been trying out some agents and things. Like, have you found it to where when you send tasks to a couple of them, if they're doing for a specific one based on their profile, that they start to overwrite each other or contrast to anything like that? So where like if you're doing it based on a certain like a certain task, like say you're going to edit this code base or like work on this design, it may be contradictory to one of the other ones if it goes in and is working on it at the same time, or do you have it in a I guess a timed approach, like okay, I'm going to do this agent this time and then this one, so it doesn't overwrite any of the recommendations that it goes into play. Did you run into that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot, actually. And so there's this emerging technology that's, I think it's currently in Claude Code, and they may have added it now in Codex if you use either of those coding agents, but it's called Git Work Trees. And so basically, it will temporarily clone the entire project into a separate work tree. And then that uh, agent will spawn up a little virtual environment and only work in that Git work tree, which is a completely separate entity from the work tree that your other agent is working on. And then when you go to do the merge, if you get conflicts, you'll have to settle those conflicts. But that keeps them from accidentally, like, grabbing an active file that the other one is working on, and then they just blow stuff up.
Okay.
And it's really exciting that that's currently possible because it opens up being able to run these parallel agents, and then the orchestrator can actually sometimes, I found many times, resolve those conflicts on its own. It adds a little bit of time to the process, but if you have three or four agents that are doing quite a bit of work, and then the orchestrator resolves the conflicts for you, it ends up being pretty seamless if you're using work trees. If you don't use those new tech stacks, then you can end up with a soup sandwich really quick.
Okay, yeah, no, that was something I was thinking about from the orderly of like, okay, getting it in the right order for the right process for different contexts. So yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense for sure. Yeah, awesome. Thanks.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for your presentation. I went on the Super Whisper website really quick, and it looks like you can get it for free or for $8. Would the free version interface with Claude, ChatGPT, and Google Gemini, or would I have to get the paid version? Do you know?
You can bring your own key. So the free version, I think, lets you put your own API key if you have one in there. And then what the paid version does is just lets you use all those without having to worry about adding in the API keys yourself.
Okay,
That
great.
makes sense.
That'll help me have a
Okay.
conversation with IT. And
Yeah,
then
and you
for
can go in there. I think you can go in maybe into the free version. I haven't tested it, but there's like an advanced config. I don't know if that's paywalled, but there's an advanced config that will let you do what I was saying earlier, which is connect it to like your private hosted stuff, maybe in Azure, or if you have Google Vertex, you should be able to wire it up that way too.
okay. And then for the January session, is that going to be recorded?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, because
We'll
I
record.
might have a conflict, but I'm really gonna try to do January, February, March for the workflows. We've started looking at doing some workflows for some of our reporting, and we're gonna be working with R and some GitHub. I'm excited about it. We want to automate some of our reports. So I think that's gonna be fun. And we've got that coming up in our center here in Phoenix this year.
Cool. And I'm starting to dip my toe into the world of R. I think next week we're going to do some fun stuff and talk a little bit more about specifically the writing of the code. I'm going to use the same example here, but we're going to go a little bit deeper with the R community. Really start talking about how you can use these for data analysis, data modeling, right? Because it's cool, you can make a web app and all that. But I know a lot of you, this is not your bread and butter, right? It's research, it's running the numbers, it's building models, and it's being able to stand behind them. And they can also help vastly with that as well. So we're going to dive
Yeah,
into
and
that
then
too.
just building up a model that you can use over and over, and then building up reports that you can just automate your reports. If you do different stat reports, then all you got to really do is clean up your data.
Yeah, and make a
So
dashboard, right? Like they can build
mhm.
that whole pipeline for you as long as you can write some good requirements.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how this is going to come together. Report automation in R has been around for a while, but I'm finally learning how to do it. I can only program multivariate statistics in R right now. Everything else I have to use SAS or SPSS. So I'm excited to learn how to do some of the more basic stuff in R too that I never learned how to do. I just kind of went straight into the frying pan when I took a stats class in graduate school. But at any rate, I'm excited to see how that's going to come together, and I think that there might be some learning in both the training in R that I'm doing and then with your recorded sessions too. So I'll look forward to seeing you in January, February, March.
Awesome. That sounds great. And I do want to touch on a subject, and this was brought up earlier, right? There's some knowledge that previously I would say was a barrier for most people, right? Like you had to dedicate quite a bit of amount of time to learning some of these platforms or practices just to be able to play in that sandbox. And that bar is going away. And I do think that we are going to start to lose some of that knowledge ourselves, because these agents are so good. This last round of agents that just came out, Gemini 3 and Opus 4.5, they really are incredible. And the way that they can understand intent, and they don't make mistakes like a lot of the other models did. The hallucination rates are pretty low. Um, there may not be a reason to like learn how to do the R programming at that detail anymore, right? Like just knowing
That's
enough about
right.
how to get the system set up and saying, hey, I've got a SaaS system and I've got a Tableau system. We've got data from two different stakeholder groups in there that I need to get because I need to do this thing with it. It's just going to
That's
be able
right.
to,
And it's
it's
always
going to
been
do
a
it.
barrier, for people in public health, like, to really sit down and spend the time that it takes to learn how to clean data and program. And if I'm intrigued to see how well the voice commands would work to work with R and say something like trying to get it to clean your data verbally and
Yeah.
see if it would do it. But I don't know if the Super Whisper or something like that would work with R. There is a user group out of Paris that's been doing some recent AI work that's been public. They've been holding seminars and stuff like that. I'm interested to see where that group is going to with their AI use with R.
Yeah, it sounds exciting, and I'm willing to collaborate with anybody if someone wants to take on some sort of like a data cleaning exercise, and you have data that you can share that we could work with as that prototype set. Please reach out to me and contact me, because that's an exercise I would love to do and a model I would like to be able to share with everybody, because I think
I
that's the
don't,
bread and
but
butter for me.
Ken Komatsu is our state epidemiologist in Arizona, and he was on the call. I'm not sure if he's still here, but he might have some data from the state of Arizona you could use.
I'm all about it. Let's do it.
And just to put in a plug for our first session of the new year, we'll have Sarah Altman from Posit, and she's going to be talking to us about the AI tooling and packages that are available in R and Posit. So
Nice.
it's all going to mesh together really nicely. We've got a good set of topics on this thread of effort for the in Q1 of next year. And I see Ali's got his hand up, so I want to make sure we have time for that. Chris, do you have a hard stop at 2, or can you stick around a little bit?
I'll hang out as long as people want to chat.